Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another edition of Hilaal Live, all the way from the Cape Town studios. My name's Luqman Shadrack. Thanks for joining us on Channel 347. Remember, you can also live stream on www.hilaal.tv. Now, it's 2024. We know that it's election year, and what we often do is invite various political parties into studio so that you, our audience, our viewer, can make up your mind on where to make your mark and cast your vote for a political party that you feel does the work, does the necessary to make our country even better. Today, we've invited a political party that about 9 months ago started campaigning, and in studio we'd like to welcome from the Rise Mzanzi campaign, Axolile Notywala. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. You guys have been all over right now, campaigning like there's no tomorrow, as most political parties do around this time of the year. A couple of months away from elections. You're looking forward to it?
Yes, definitely. An exciting challenge.
Yes.
And we're catching up to the bigger ones that have existed for a longer time.
Brilliant. So for those that don't know too much about Rise Mzanzi, tell us about the structure of the organization.
So Rise Mzanzi at the national level is made up of a national leadership collective, whose national leader is Sonia Zozibi. I serve in the national leadership collective, representing the Western Cape.
Okay.
My role is the Western Cape convener, and we have 8 other provincial conveners. So we're represented in all provinces. They all serve at the national leadership collective. Within all those provinces, all the provinces have their own provincial leadership collective structures. And going down, we then have people at different levels in municipalities, districts. And we have overall just over 200 organizers organizing across South Africa.
Okay, brilliant. I would imagine, being the new kid on the block when it comes to politics, that you've got big shoes to fill, and catching up to the bigger parties. Various structural implementations need to be done. Various projects needs to be adhered to, needs to be campaigned as well. In the last 9 months, what's been some of your projects that you've worked on?
I think first and foremost, at the outset, what we've set out to do was to change the political culture in the country.
Okay.
And that comes out in the work that we do in terms of how we organize and where we organize, in the structures that we build at the very local level. But also building a movement means that we have to get some of the things done even before we get to an election.
Okay.
And that's what we've been doing over these past couple of months. One of the biggest challenges that we've taken on as well is the issue of hunger in the country. And so we've worked with some of our organizers and volunteers and communities and community organizations that we are close to make sure that we try and alleviate, and as Rise Mzanzi, once we get to be in power, we make sure that we eradicate the poverty. And some of the things we've been able to do has been to help volunteers to start community gardens and start community kitchens so that people can have something to eat. And in our manifesto, we say that each and every family must have 3 meals a day. It's possible. We have the money, we have the resources in the country. It's just not used effectively or efficiently. And those are some of the things that we've been doing, but also encouraging communities to keep their spaces and their communities clean, the environment clean. Therefore, we started cleanup actions in different parts of the country. In Hout Bay here in Cape Town, we helped a community open an early childhood development center.
Nice.
Because we believe it has to start there. A huge focus of our education system focuses on primary and secondary and tertiary education. We neglect children at a very young age in terms of their development before they start primary schooling. These are some of the things that we've been doing across the country.
Brilliant. Now, having projects like this, these are very important in our countries, and we know how a ripple effect has created over the very many years as well. COVID's exacerbated that, job loss, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you partner with other organizations when you do projects like this, or do you find that you handling the project on your own has a better impact?
Our main aim is to support communities and to support community organizations. There are people that are already doing this in some aspects in parts of the country, and we want to support and scale those efforts. And so we don't come and introduce a project. We come and engage with the community and hear what their need is, and we offer our support with the little resources that we have. If we don't have those resources or even expertise, then we call on other people, whether it's organizations or professionals across the country, because that's the type of culture that we want to change, that politics should not only be left to politicians.
Got you. Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at things as well. It's going to be an interesting 2024. And one of the things that most South Africans have on their mind, that's concern, that's plaguing our communities, plaguing our beautiful country, is crime and corruption, not just in our communities, but also among the government levels as well, government officials, municipal officials as well. What is some of the, what's the impact that you feel your political party can make with that regard?
I mean, I think we also just need to start talking about this as organized crime, because it's gotten to that extent now. The failures of the police to act, to deal with it at a very basic level, it's gotten to be very organized, with gangs, with extortionists, with organized criminals within government. And for us to be able to deal with that, we need to make sure that the policing service is properly trained, and we've lost our crime intelligence effectiveness, because in order to deal with organized crime, we need to have a strong crime intelligence department within the SAPS. And so that's one of the things that we've set out to do. But for us to do that, the first thing is to say, let's clean SAPS at the very higher level. So the provincial commissioners, everyone, the ministers, we want to establish an independent body that will re-interview those people and check their skills, their experience, and also check if they have been affected or been involved in any criminal activities, and remove all those people and put in fresh people that have the skills and that are capable. That's the first thing that we have to do at the national level. But coming to communities where we live, we just had today a sad story of a child that was shot and killed in Mitchell's Plain.
That's correct.
And we've started to take up that work because we have a problem of gun violence in the country. And we're already doing some things, we're already working with some communities around that. And the first thing that we have to do is we must close the tap. We need to know where these guns are coming from, and we must close that. We need to make sure that there's no easy circulation of these guns, and mostly illegal guns. Some of them we know have come from SAPS. About 2,000 guns were sold a number of years ago by a former police officer. And many of those guns, about 800 or so, have been linked to murders in the Western Cape. 140-something children have died as a result of that. And so if we clean SAPS at the national level, at the provincial level, we will be able to stop some of those things.
Yeah, but in tandem with that, obviously the time needs to justify the crime as well. Sentencing of heinous crimes like this needs to also be strengthened. What's your thoughts?
Definitely. Law enforcement together with the court system, those need to be strengthened. Those need to be properly resourced with the right resources and also the right people. And so we need to make sure that we have the right judges. We need to make sure that we have the right detectives, not just any police officer, but detectives that are trained to investigate crime. And that's important to make sure that law enforcement is respected. But in order for us to make sure that we stop crime, we need to deal with also the underlying systemic issues, because we won't be able to police everything. We can't police poverty, we can't police unemployment and inequality. Therefore, we need to make sure that we deal with those things so that young people are not attracted to crime because they don't have anything to do.
Yeah, it seems to be the easy way out, considering that our communities have no jobs or very little jobs to apply for as well. Speaking about unemployment, how do you plan to address that? Have you put certain systems in place where communities have access to available jobs?
So one, we need to create new industries. There are, and I think this issue of crime and violence is also something that is crucial to deal with for us to be able to create those new industries. I mean, the city of Cape Town and the provincial government have been talking about the fact that they've been getting a lot of tourists this year. But those tourists only end up in certain parts of the city, because certain parts of the city are dangerous, and therefore tourists don't go there, which means that there's no economic activity in those parts of the community, which means that there's no jobs. That's what we have to deal with. We have to make sure that if tourists do come here, that they get to go to Khayelitsha, that they get to go to Manenberg, where people there can create spaces where they can create jobs and make sure that they benefit from that tourism. So tourism is a big thing. But also, we need to also look at new green industries. We have a climate crisis. And so how we look at our cities, how we build our cities, how we build our public transport, we need to make sure that it's green, and that can help create some jobs.
Brilliant. We're chatting to Axolile from Rise Mzanzi around their political manifesto and some of the projects that they are implementing in our beautiful country. Be part of the conversation. Join us on the WhatsApp line, WhatsApps only, 079 085 2511. We'd like to know your thoughts about the upcoming elections. More importantly, to Rise Mzanzi, the new kid on the block when it comes to politics in South Africa. You are still watching Hilaal Live. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to correspond with us on the WhatsApp line, 079 085 2511. That's the all-important WhatsApp line. No telephone calls, unfortunately, only WhatsApps. This is our Cape Town number. We have Rise Mzanzi in studio, and if you'd like to pose any questions to Axolile, who has graciously given us his time to join us in studio and let us know a bit more about this amazing political party that's making a difference in our country. Axolile, thanks so much for coming in and chatting to us. Really appreciate it. We had a couple of questions with regards to some of the your manifesto that you recently released. But one of the things South Africans, I think, have been struggling with for many, many years is our health system. It seems to take 2 steps forward, 6 steps back in many avenues. What's Rise Mzanzi's take on our health system?
We have a health system that is very unequal. I think people that can afford are able to afford, people that have money, and we know we live in a very unequal country. And I think what is important for us, we continue to say, is one, as we approach and focus on leadership, that has to trickle down at every level of government and governance. And so our hospitals and our clinics need to have the right leaders, the right administration at that level. But also we need to rid them of corruption as well.
Of course.
And that's important. But I think access is important, and accessibility. In many communities where we've been and where we've engaged, people struggle to even get to the clinic, which is supposed to be the closest to them. And so our approach in the manifesto, we've said we need to make sure that in each and every community, you are able to access a clinic within 15 minutes. That shouldn't take you an hour to get to access.
Because all too often we see our senior citizens, our grandmothers, our mothers, our fathers, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
To get to a clinic so that they can be seen to or get their medication on their day. And it's hours and sometimes even getting turned back when they get to, as close to the line as possible. I mean, that is heartbreaking. And how do you plan on alleviating and cutting back on hours and days spent of people traveling to clinics?
I mean, one of the things that we need to do, and these are things that have been done before in the country and in other parts of the world, we need to create a force of healthcare workers, so that not everyone necessarily has to go to a clinic, that those healthcare workers can go and see people within their homes, within their spaces, particularly the elderly and children that might not need necessarily a doctor. I think that's very important. If we train those people, train enough of those people, it also alleviates the burden in terms of our health system.
Absolutely.
But also these things, again, we look at them at a very intersectional manner. If you are able to deal with violent crime,
Yeah.
you lessen the burden in
Absolutely.
hospitals and in clinics, because majority of the people in many cases that you would find are people that have stab wounds, that have gunshot wounds.
But in saying that as well, if you're looking at health individuals, health professionals going into the community, then it boils back to the crime and the safety.
Exactly.
And once we sort that out, then we can, implement this.
Exactly. That's why safety for us is a big priority. We have to make sure that we deal with the basics. Everything that we do, whether you link it to this issue of health, whether you link it to the economy and jobs, you need to make sure that we operate in a safe environment.
Not just for the individuals receiving the treatment, but for people that administrate in it as well.
Yeah.
Often enough, we hear of ambulances that have been hijacked, and ambulance staff have been, now police have need to accompany people into communities just to get help as well. So it's a serious effect.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, you guys can be part of that change.
Definitely.
So that our much needed community can receive the necessary treatment.
Yeah.
and live a healthier life as well. One of the things that I was very interested in the manifesto was the distribution of land and also the access to land resources in South Africa.
Yeah.
What's Rise Mzanzi's take on that?
We come from a painful past, and we have to acknowledge that, and everyone has to acknowledge that painful past of dispossession. And we need to make sure that people have access to land, because, again, if you look at all these issues and these systemic and structural issues, they're linked to land. And our approach has been to not look at land as many other people have looked at it, in a very populist way that you just use to get votes. It must be systemic, the way you look at it. One is that we need to reshape the structures of our cities. Cape Town, if you look at it particularly, it still remains an apartheid city.
Right.
And if we are to deal with these issues and the underlying systemic issues, we need to redistribute land in exactly like prime areas where people can have access to the right hospitals. People can have access to schools that are capacitated and that provide the quality education. And so we have to make sure that either it's land for housing or it's land for people to also grow their own food. But also we've realized that not everyone that might require a house requires land.
Right.
Some people just need to be provided with resources, whether it's a home loan for people to build their own homes. And so all these things are things that you will find in our manifesto in terms of making sure that people get land. And when you talk about expropriation, this is something that our constitution has always allowed. It's just been a matter of implementation, of having the right people that have the political will to make sure that land is expropriated when it needs to.
Okay. We have the WhatsApp line open if you'd like to communicate with us, 079 085 2511. Let us know your thoughts. We have Rise Mzanzi in studio. They've recently registered on the ballot 9 months ago as a political force to be reckoned with, taking up the bigger parties and, allowing for our communities to live a better life as well. Axolile, you mentioned education, you mentioned schools as well. All too often we do find and hear hair-raising stories about schools that just don't have the basic needs. For example, running water, a bathroom system that works where kids can go relieve themselves. They've got to go all the way home, sometimes not coming back to school. Certain provinces are lacking in that area. What does Rise Mzanzi plan to do about that?
I mean, in a lot of these things that we talk about, we haven't necessarily, and we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, because some of us come from a civil society background and we've worked on these things, and there are organizations that have done this work. All we have to do is partner with those organizations to make sure that they help to push to make sure things are implemented. Equal Education, for example, works across the country and advocated years ago for minimum norms and standards for school infrastructure, meaning to say what makes a school a school. It needs to have a toilet, water, electricity, a library, play spaces for kids. those are things that exist in terms of our policies and our laws, but they've just not been implemented. And all we have to do is to make sure that we implement what has not been implemented. And that's a big reason why we decided to form Rise Mzanzi, because many of us have been shouting from the outside with no one to listen from us in the inside.
Couple of minutes left. Service delivery has also plagued our communities. We've seen so many communities go without for months, for years on end as well. What's Rise Mzanzi's take on that?
And those issues also speak to the economy. If you look at our economy and job section, we focus on 3 primary things to fix. One, Eskom. If we don't fix Eskom, then we shouldn't be doing this thing, because why do people not have electricity? How do people survive? How do businesses survive? The second is Transnet, to make sure that we are able to do business. We are able to move things that we have to move, import and export. But thirdly, it's our municipalities. Our municipalities are crumbling. Even at that level, even though this is a provincial and national government, national election, we need to make sure that we deal and look at the issues that face people at a very local level.
Okay. One WhatsApp's come through very quickly before we end the interview. For Axolile, does Rise Mzanzi recognize the genocide in Gaza?
Yes, we do. I mean, we've supported the case, the ICJ case, the court case, and we've also issued a statement to saying that because these things sometimes happen and nothing ever happens, we want to make sure that there's proper implementation to make sure that no more loss of life is happening there.
Brilliant. In closing, any last message you'd like to leave our viewers with?
I'd like to say this coming weekend, 3rd and 4th of February, is the last voter registration weekend. Please go and register to vote. It remains open before the elections has been pronounced. People can also register online. If you have your ID and you have the required information, you can register yourself online and help others to register as well.
Brilliant. Axolile, all the very best with your campaign for 2024. Having someone as an opposition to some of the bigger parties and reminding them of our constitution is always good. All the very best to you and your team.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. In studio, Rise Mzanzi, go and check them out. A manifesto just recently released. They've been 9 months since they registered. And if you feel that this is the political party that works for you, you're welcome to let us know your thoughts around that as well. After the break, we chat to an organization that's also doing great work in and around our beautiful communities. You are still watching Hilaal Live.